In my lifetime, I think we are facing challenges today that could easily make you cynical, give you a sense of hopelessness, have you sort of shut down. And yet the key as we face these challenges is to somehow remain optimistic, connected, looking for and embracing joy, which happens when you really embrace those around you.
You want to hug it out?
No, not really.
Let's hug it out, bitch.
Well, of all the things that Hollywood could choose to reboot, I can't say I expected Shrek would be a series that had to be redesigned and be hip with today's audiences. I mean, it's not like we already have 4 feature films released to date, as well as a spin-off film, a Netflix TV series, TV specials, and more short films that I care to count, even an entire theme park dedicated to him in London that runs to this day. Now, full disclosure, this video isn't going to be so much about the whole Shrek debacle and how everyone wants a sequel instead of a reboot, rightfully so. Instead, I want to talk about movie reboots in general. We all know Hollywood is obsessed with remaking movies and rebooting franchises, and we know why fans react with such strong emotions whenever a reboot is announced. The main question I want to pose is, why do so many of them fail, yet they seem to keep getting made?
No one knows for sure, but I intend to find out. Reboot!
Let's start by talking about the concept itself. What is a reboot, and how exactly does it differ from a sequel? Well, essentially, a reboot involves starting a franchise over from scratch while keeping certain elements of the original template intact. This way, the original proprietors of the franchise can appeal to both longtime fans who have become tired of seeing the same thing over and over again, as well as attract new fans who are curious to see what it's about.
MC Mikey. MC Ray.
At least, that's what a reboot should do. All too often we see the exact opposite. When big budget movie studios are short on ideas, they often tend to look back on movies they made that others enjoyed in the past and end up changing them into newer versions that appeal to nobody. It's the reason why A Nightmare on Elm Street went from being a fun horror film with comedic elements to being a depressing, unfunny shadow of its former self. It's the reason why The Amazing Spider-Man bored audiences by rehashing the same origin story over again. It's the reason why Columbia Pictures thought a Total Recall remake was a good idea. God, that entire movie needs a Total Recall. Reboots have been done for as long as movies have been around. It feels like every year there's always something that's getting shuffled back into the spotlight and ends up falling flat on its face. This is largely due to one central problem. The audiences already have the original movie to watch and enjoy. It's not like they're going away anytime soon, but studios somehow feel the need to try and make them current with today's audiences, like with Karate Kid. Man, I'm still pissed off about that movie. Even knowing Columbia Pictures' track record with sequels and remakes and reboots in hindsight, I still couldn't believe what they did to that movie. It's like, how are we gonna get people to see it? Oh, I know. Let's have Justin Bieber rap with Jaden Smith. That'll show people how trendy we are. Obviously, Karate Kid isn't the only victim. There's tons of examples of movie studios just being tone deaf, lazy, and putting no effort into a movie that no one wanted to see. Of course, I couldn't talk about all of them, because otherwise the video would go on forever. That's why for this video, I want to talk about one specific series. A series that I feel perfectly encapsulates how studios can approach reboots, and how studios prefer to treat reboots. The series in question is Universal Studios' The Mummy.
I saw her. She is real.
Well, Universal definitely has a track record for making sequels as far as The Mummy is concerned. I mean, just look at them. The series started in 1932. Why would they continue making sequels if no one watched them? After a few decades of sequels, Universal decided to give the Mummy series a break in the mid-50s, and it wouldn't be until about 4 decades later before we would see an eventual reboot. You might even say they laid the series to rest. Once enough time passed, Universal rebooted the series and gave us one of the greatest action-adventure movies of the 90s. Rather than be another slow, meandering horror film in the series, it was updated for contemporary audiences to focus on action and adventure, backed up by computer-generated effects, lighthearted comedy, and a greater emphasis on Egyptian mythology. Oh, and it had Brendan Fraser in it too. Need I say more? The Mummy would go on to spawn 2 sequels, The Mummy Returns and Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, along with an animated series and even a spin-off series which spawned a whole line of other sequels. This is how you reboot a movie. By keeping the core elements intact while updating it for modern audiences, you have the best chance of ensuring that everyone can enjoy watching it. Movie audiences today have more than enough Mummy movies to tide them over for a long time. So how did Universal approach the new Mummy reboot?
Please. Just. Daddy. Please. Just wait.
What the hell was that?
2017's The Mummy is what happens when you allow a studio to make decisions based entirely on greed without any regard or remorse for the quality of the story or the requests of the fans who helped make the franchise as popular as it is. It was set to be the first in a line of films set within a cinematic universe, referred to by Universal as the Dark Universe. Ooh. Cinematic universes by themselves deserve their own video, so I won't go into too much detail with them here, but basically as of 2018, cinematic universes are pretty popular, and it all stems from Marvel's financial success with its own cinematic universe. The difference with Marvel is that they spent a decade cultivating their universe by making quality films that people enjoyed and developing stories for characters that fans genuinely wanted to see on the big screen. By contrast, The Mummy is a stale, bland product. Not a movie, a product. One made purely for the sake of capitalizing on Universal's massive backlog of monster movies, going through all the motions of traditional box office conventions with the enthusiasm of a dead fish. This reflected in the box office returns, of course, resulting in the film being labeled a box office bomb, losing up to $95 million in marketing costs, and being pulled from most theaters by its 3rd week, with plans for the Dark Universe now being reportedly cancelled, and Universal Studios looking like a bunch of out-of-touch idiots. Fans can tell when a movie's being made with love and passion, and they can tell when a movie's being made to sell tickets.
The thing with me is that I am smart, and I'm self-smarted, basically, by myself. Basically from nature and smoke and drugs and doing different things, I've self-learned myself.
So the main question is, why? Why do movie studios keep making reboots we don't want to see? Why do they spend obscene amounts of money toward products that will ultimately produce diminishing returns? Well, the first and most obvious answer is that most movie studios are averse to risk and don't want to make a product that will lose them money, so they tend to stick with what worked in the past. That makes sense in any business, but what worked in the past isn't necessarily guaranteed to work in the present. If it did, then spaghetti westerns would still be popular. Times change, and similarly, so do audiences' tastes. I mean, sure, there are exceptions like Star Wars, but even those exceptions aren't immune to criticism.
Straight to your bone, from the farm to the fridge. We know what you want, cause we know how you live. We got the big bad Bessie with the M-I-L-K.
But sometimes it goes deeper. Sometimes a movie is made just for the sake of a studio being able to hold on to a license. We saw this when that absolute disaster of a Fantastic Four reboot came out. The only reason that was made was so 20th Century Fox could keep holding on to the film rights, which didn't matter anyway because they're about to be swallowed up by the Disney machine. Sometimes a reboot is made for the sake of appealing to identity politics, as was the case when that stupid Ghostbusters movie was made, relegating the surviving cast of the original movie to cameos in favor of appealing to a demographic that never gave a crap about Ghostbusters. And as we've seen with The Mummy, sometimes a movie is made just for the sake of following the crowd, emulating whatever they're doing in hopes of achieving the same success as their competitors. Of course, reboots can also get made simply because fans want to see them made. Casino Royale, King Kong, Batman Begins, the recent Planet of the Apes movies, and Star Trek are all examples of movies that saw a complete reboot from the ground up while still keeping themes from the original version intact. And the end result? Well, financial success, critical acclaim, and happy fan bases apparently. In short, there isn't just one sole reason why reboots keep getting made. There's really a ton of possible answers that could be given in that regard. But I think if there's one specific reason that could be pinpointed as to why so many of them fail, it's because they play it too safe. Studios have a difficult job trying to balance the old with the new, so they tend to stick closer with what the original accomplished just for the sake of following an established blueprint and making production easier. The problem with that method, however, is that you may as well just be filming it shot for shot, which pisses off the core fans who already have and enjoy the original film. And if it's a reboot of a violent film that ends up being PG, or a complete reimagining of the original story, then that makes matters even worse. But studios just keep making reboots that try to appeal to everybody, rather than the fans who made the original versions as popular as they were. So it's no wonder why reboots will keep failing time and time again. It's literally the definition of insanity.
Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
I won't deny that it's difficult to get it right with a reboot. I won't deny that it's not as simple as just hitting a reset button. And I'm aware that some people may truly have wanted to see another reboot of The Mummy, or any of the other reboots that have been released in recent years, if for no other reason than pure curiosity. I just wish studios would pay more attention to what the fans want. After all, if the Evil Dead series is any indication, it's that the fans have the power to get what they want, even if they have to wait literal decades. If a series ends up losing its way and is in desperate need of reform, then I can see a reboot being totally justified. But if it's being made just so the studio has an excuse to pursue its own visions of grandeur, then that's where I draw the line. And unfortunately, it seems studios these days are happier than ever to cross it.
It's awful.
It's all fucking awful! It's all of it, and every single one of them sucks!